Hello, I'm Josiah, and I'm in 4th grade, and I'm going to be saying a verse. It is Psalm 119:89. Forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens.
Hi, my name is Johnny, and I go to Galesburg Christian School, and I'm going to be in 5th grade this year. And one thing I'm looking forward to is making friends with the new kids. And my favorite Bible verse is Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Miller, and I go to Galesburg Christian School, and I'm going into 7th grade. The one thing I like about school is that I always have friends there if I'm in trouble, and they can always help me, and my teachers are really nice, and they're always there for me. My favorite Bible verse is Psalm 1:3. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water that yields its fruits in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and all that he does, he prospers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a freshman at Galesburg Christian School, and some things I'm looking forward to are algebra and biology. My favorite verse is Psalms 119:105, which says that His word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rebecca. I'm a senior in high school. I'm planning on going to Bob Jones to study criminal justice. A verse that has meant a lot to me this year is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, plans of welfare and not evil, to give you a hope in the future.
Hi, I'm a junior at JCS, and my favorite thing about school is getting to see my friends. My favorite verse is Galatians 2:17, which says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Thank you.
Hello, I am Caitlin, and I am in my senior year of high school. This year I am preparing for college. Next year I'm going to go to Bob Jones for nursing. This year my favorite verse is Psalm 63:1. O God, thou art my God, early will I seek thee, my soul thirsteth for thee. I'm looking forward to growing closer in my relationship with him.
For them having to do that live or having to sit here and watch them do it pre-recorded. I don't know which would be worse as an individual, but thank you for all of you, and that was wonderful to have just a kind of a short testimony in that regard. We usually try to have all the kids do something during the service, and with COVID it's kind of restricted, and obviously we're not doing bulletins, we don't have ushers and all of those other things that we normally get them to do, and not even an offering. And so very thankful that all worked out and you all were willing to do that. Maybe some having to be forced a little more than others, but we're thankful for that military willingness. Very good. And then to continue on, for the Miller's enjoyment of watching themselves, we have some special music. right, and at this time, my kids will be having some special music, I believe. Very good. I believe they learned that medley at camp, if I recall. The girls can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think pretty much all Bible camps do this. They do kind of a closing with a bonfire, and everybody kind of gives testimony of what decisions they've made. And it seems like several camps, if they've made a decision for salvation, they make a recognition in that regard of some sort. And then that sounds, if I recall, you guys sing that song then at that point, just around a campfire, and just something that left an impact on their hearts, and they wanted to sing that song ever since, and here they did. Well, we want to look here as we consider back to school. We'll be looking at the topic of friendship. Certainly, school time frame is a great time to be challenged with friends and to challenge friends. But ultimately that applies to all ages. We all have the responsibility and the opportunity, I'll say it that way, the opportunity to have friends, to be a friend, but we also have the responsibility to truly be that friend. And I think in today's day and age, that very topic of friendship, of being a true friend, is greatly distorted and under attack, I'll say it that way. Greatly under attack, and we need to be reminded of the simple truths of what it means to be a friend. And we're going to be looking at a passage that I know that we're all aware of in regards to David and Jonathan, and a great picture of true friendship, and so many other passages that we could go to. But in 1 Samuel 18, I think there's a number of just practical applications for us today. And then, as we've done in the past, we've got some, to an extent, some ridiculous things to hand out to the kids that go with each of the points. And so we'll be doing that here as well this morning. But before I do, let's begin with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you again for your goodness. I thank you for that there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother, and we thank you for you as that friend, as one who sacrificed his life for us while we were yet sinners. And I do pray that we would learn what it means to truly be a friend, not just trying to find friends, but to truly be a friend. And I just pray that you challenge us and direct our steps, regardless of our age, regardless of the number of our acquaintances, that we would learn in a better extent how it is and why it is, and the reasoning for being a true friend. And I pray that we would do such to your honor and to your glory. Allow me to decrease, that you alone would increase. And I just pray that, again, from the youngest to the oldest, that we be challenged this morning on the simple truths of friendship. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Jeremy Taylor. It sounds like a modern name. He was a cleric in the Church of England in the 1600s. Jeremy Taylor. He was known as the, quote, Shakespeare of the Divines. He has this quote: "By friendship you mean the greatest love, the greatest usefulness, the most open communication, the noblest suffering, the severest truth, the heartiest counsel, and the greatest union of minds in which brave men and women are capable." That was a pretty strong quote in regards to what friendship is, which is not evidenced in my next illustration. Before Jan, and it almost seems like I've relayed this illustration before, but it's very vague in my mind, so it may be in yours as well. Before Jan Paderewski, yes, left Poland to play his first recital in London, he asked an influential pianist in Poland to give him a letter of recommendation. And he prefaced it with, "I hope to never have to use this, but if this recital is a complete failure and I am left in London without the means to return back home, can you give me a letter that will help me get by?" And so this influential pianist decided to do so and wrote a letter, sealed it in an envelope, gave it to him, and wished him well. Paderewski made his way to London and indeed did well. Never needed that letter. In fact, accomplished much, we could say, on his own, if you could say it that way. And years later, as he was kind of rummaging through some of his things, he found that sealed envelope. And he thought that, I wonder what was written about me. So he opened up that sealed envelope, and there was a handwritten introduction inside that read this: "This will introduce Jan Paderewski, who plays the piano, for which he demonstrates no conspicuous talent." Great help. A great friend had he truly needed that envelope. A British publication offered a prize for the best definition of a friend many years ago. Here are the top 5 answers. This is obviously British, so this is from England. Number 5, a definition of a friend, and this has no spiritual background. This is just somebody asking, what is the definition of a friend in a secular publication. Number 5, one who multiplies joys, divides grief, and whose honesty is valuable. I think that's a great definition. Number 4, one who understands our silence. That's also a very good description. Number 3, a volume of sympathy bound in cloth. Number 2, a watch that beats true for all times and never runs down. Number 1, the winner of the challenge said this: a friend is defined as one who comes in when the world has gone out. Augustine, obviously I'm not promoting Augustine necessarily, but Augustine is quoted as saying this: "I would rather have speeches that are true than those which contain merely nice distinctions, just as I would rather have friends who are wise than merely those who are handsome." Ben Franklin said, "Be slow in choosing friends and even slower in changing friends." today I think there's a great danger, as I've already alluded to, in the area of friendship. And again, that applies to the youngest, which I believe would be Josiah, and to the oldest. No, we know who the oldest one in the room is. My dad today is the oldest. From my youngest to my father in this room right now, he would be the youngest of the oldest, and this applies to all of us. I think there's a great disappearance of friends. I believe that as a church, broadly speaking, as Christianity at large, I believe that we are becoming more and more influenced by the world's philosophies that are waxing worse deceiving and being deceived. And I think that we're beginning to accept a new, revised definition of what friendship means. Secondly, I believe as part of that, we're becoming more and more self-focused. Kate, my daughter Kate, loves Gordman's and really likes their sale, closing the business sales that are going on right now. And she has a knack of going into that place in recent weeks, months, and coming out with clothes for less than $1 a piece. And some pretty nice clothes. And she'll wander through those racks and pick and sort and comes out with a whole armful, and it's like $10. And I don't know how she does that. I think the Savinskys would be rather proud of her at that extent. But as I mentioned before in our visits to Gordman's, if you've ever been to Gordman's there in Peoria, the store is awfully hot. I don't know if they don't, if the lady who runs it or the guy who runs it is just naturally always cold and keeps the temperature hot, or if their air conditioning is just horrible. I don't know what the deal is. But Josiah and I often found ourselves when we are at that store in the kind of the entryway, because that seems to be the only spot where it's air conditioned. They have the kind of the blast air conditioner blowing on you as you walk in, and so we'll just stand in that entryway, which is a great benefit because number one, it's cool, but it's also very what would you call that? It has great sound acoustics, and so we actually call it, Josiah and I call it, to give you a family secret, we call it the Ricola spot. And we'll walk around, we'll enter the store all together as a family, and Josiah and I will kind of wander. We'll go through the kids area, go through the guys section, maybe look at the toys, and then 5 minutes will come by, and Josiah says, let's go to the Ricola spot. Well, so then we'll go out in that lobby, and this is why we call it the Ricola, because then we will sit in this amazing acoustic room, and we'll go, Ricola! And you get this, and sometimes the clerk inside, because she's not very far away, will kind of look at us and kind of giggle at us, and it gets Josiah all embarrassed, and we wait until she turns back around, and we'll do it again. Ricola! And if somebody's coming towards us, or some, like even from inside the store to leave, or from outside of the parking lot coming to the store, I will usually wait until the last second and then let out my Ricola, because Josiah's like, Dad, they're going to hear you, Dad. Well, one of our times that we were in there, and in the last month, I think we've been there 2 or 3 times. And great deals if you're looking. In fact, we went there yesterday, and their stock is way down. But if you're looking for stuff that's under $1 in many cases, go check it out. There's a little plug there. And you have to, as you enter, you have to try the Ricola spot, because there's nothing, it's even better than your bathroom, I'll say it that way. If you've ever done Ricola in the shower, it's even better in the entryway of Gordman's. But we were standing there, not yesterday, but a previous time that we were there, and this kind of an elderly lady, she was, I'm not trying to go in demographics, she was older, and she was rather kind of large and kind of awkward, not walking very well, and pushing a cart that was packed full. She had a cart that was literally over the top, and I bet she spent $25. It was just full of stuff over the top, and she's pushing this cart towards the door. Well, we had gotten there a half hour before they closed, and they locked the doors from the outside at that time frame, because they need to get everybody through the lines for checkout. And so Josiah and I were standing there. People coming up from the parking lot cannot get in. There's only people leaving. But because they've turned off the automatic doors that normally would just open as you got close, you've got to push the doors open yourself from the inside. Well, I saw this elderly lady coming towards me with a cart that was mounded over, and I could tell that she really was using that cart to even help support her walk. And so I just walked over and opened up the door. for her, which seems to be that would have been a normal gesture that anybody that is able to think on their own should be able to do. Well, this lady was so overwhelmed. I thought she was going to give me, put me in her will in that moment. So thankful and like shocked that somebody would do even the smallest measure of being civil and kind. And I can't tell you, and I literally, and you know how I am with hugs and kisses, I literally thought with our mask on that she was going to try to give me a hug and a kiss, because this lady was just like blubbering over me because I held the door open for her. Well, then she left on her way, and Josiah and I went about back to our Rico. Well, there was a store manager that was inside the store, kind of in the, as you walk in, she'd be right there, like a Walmart greeter, but for Gordman's. And she was there because when people came from the outside, she'd go and tell them that they were closed because they're getting people out. Well, she saw what I did, and then she came out into the Ricola spot to give me all kinds of gratitude and thankfulness. And I just remember thinking, I held the door open. This doesn't require a recognition from Congress. This is not presidential award worthy. I literally did this with a door, and I'm ready for the media to show up and take my picture because they're going nuts about the fact that, and I realized there just several weeks ago that we have a problem in our society. If holding a door open, something that not that many years ago was the expected norm, especially for a guy, for any lady, if holding the door open is such an amazing feat of humanity today, then we have got a problem with kindness. We've got a problem with friendship today. And I fear that in a way, that thinking, that deception, that redefining friendship is warping its way into the church as well. And we've got to be very cautious in that regard. But I also believe, and you've heard me spout this out as well, I really do think that social media, although it has social in its name, has done more to harm friendship than it has done anything else. If you have a friend on Facebook and your only contact with that friend is on Facebook, that is not a friend, and that is not the way that God has called us to be a friend. It doesn't matter if you've got 37,000 friends on Facebook or whatever social media platform. If that is our only connection with them, there is nothing biblical about that friendship. I know you can send them encouragement. You can send them I'm praying for you today on Facebook. I know that there's things that you can do. But honestly, if you look at the way that God has described friendship, you can't do that on social media. You can be an encouragement on social media. You can edify them on social media to an extent. But you cannot, can I say that again? You cannot be a true godly friend if your only contact is on social media. You can't. It says social in the very description of it, but it is anything but social. It is legalized stalking is all that social media is to a point. And we've got to be very cautious with that. A PhD wrote a reference, an article. A guy with a PhD wrote an article for Psychology Today, and there's nothing Christian about Psychology Today. He wrote an article in Psychology Today, and he was referencing 3 types of friendship as Aristotle promoted. He gave 3 kinds of friendship. He said, number 1, there's a friendship based on utility. That would be 2 classmates who really aren't friends, but they sit next to each other and they help each other in class. If one of them's sick, one of them goes to the bathroom and excuses themselves, they come back, now they're 3 bullet points down on the notes. They can look over at this classmate and they'll help. That doesn't mean they're hanging out together after class. It doesn't mean that they're doing any biblical aspect of true friendship. But hey, they're sitting next to me, they're helping me out. That's a friendship based on utility, per Aristotle. There's also a friendship based on pleasure. There are friends that we enjoy just being around. There are people that we enjoy just being with, hanging out with somebody. They make you laugh, they make you feel good. You enjoy doing this, you have common interests. That, as Aristotle says, is a friendship based on pleasure. Again, I'm not promoting Aristotle by any means, but again, this man on, Psychology Today, wrote this. And then there's a third, Aristotle points out, a friendship based on virtue. He says this is the highest form of friendship. It's a shared vision of good and a desire to assist each other along the way. This type of friendship, says Aristotle, requires time, familiarity, trust, mutual goodwill, and of course, by the very definition, virtue. Friendship based on utility, maybe it's your neighbor and you can borrow their tools when you need to, and they can borrow yours. That's a friendship based on utility. I get something, they get something. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. There's a friendship based on pleasure, just like hanging out with you. We have common interests, it's fun. We get together, we have a great time. But the third point is a friendship based on virtue, which is true friendship. This Mr. PhD Smarty Pants attempted to live Christ without, or live life without Christ, summarizes Aristotle's descriptions in this way. So as I read this quote, this is not coming from a Christian. It's not coming from a Christian perspective. It is quoting Aristotle, of all people, and his 3 definitions of friends in reference to social media. Here's what he said. Are Facebook friends true friends? It depends on what you mean by friend. Clearly we can have friendships based on utility and pleasure via Facebook, but what about friendships based on virtue? I'm skeptical that we can if Facebook is the only means by which we relate to another person. Given all that his highest form of friendship requires, it seems to me that some real, rather than merely virtual, contact is required. In this kind of friendship, the friends, this is his quote, do life together. And this is tricky to accomplish via status updates. This is a guy who does not know Christ. In fact, his very PhD is in a field of trying to figure out how to live life without Christ. But yet he acknowledges that if you're going to be a good friend, this is not about a friendship based on utility or a friendship based on pleasure. This is a friendship based on virtue. And he acknowledges you can't do that from a distance. You've got to have interaction. Now I know that myself personally, I don't have any friends except my wife and my children on social media. And so I know it sounds like I'm ranting on something that doesn't necessarily even apply to me. But the truth is we are being redefined. We are redefining. We are the ones redefining what friendship is. And we've got to get back to what God defines, how he defines friendship. And use social media for good when you can. But that can never replace what it means to be a friend. It can never replace what it means to have true friendship. It can never replace, even as an unsaved, carnally minded, I can live life without Christ, man who has a high education in things that are void of Christ, says, you can't be a friend on social media in the proper way. 1 Samuel chapter 17, if you want to turn to, we'll be in chapter 18 here this morning, but chapter 17 is the amazing victory of David over Goliath. And what we see, in fact, let me read the last couple of verses of chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 55. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, I don't know what Saul's accent would be. I can't think of an accent to give Saul, but here's his quote. Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son is the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, Abner took him and brought him before Saul. This is rather disgusting. With the head of the Philistine still in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered and said, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. Now, having accomplished what has just transpired, Saul obviously is intrigued. Day after day, this giant has come out and said, give me a man, let's make it one-on-one. You versus me. And the whole reality of this entire battle will be determined on this one-on-one battle. Sent out a man, and the nation of Israel stood back in fear. David comes as a shepherd boy, just simply there to visit his brothers and bring them some food. Which as I was doing one of my last classes in that time frame, and still even to a point in the New Testament time frame, if you were in the military, unlike AJ, who gets resort-like facilities and food and all of that. If you were in the military back in those days, you were responsible for really ultimately everything. You provided your own weapon, you provided your own clothes, you provided your own food. And they provided, as the government, they provided the means by which, or the battle for which you would fight in. That was pretty much their extent. We're going to go to war with them. That's our job. We just want the war with them. Now you do what is necessary to accomplish that victory. And so David bringing his brother's food was not just a visit of David saying, hey, I wonder what's going on in the battle. I'm kind of nosy. Hey, I'll bring some bread with me just to have an excuse. Well, David is literally going to visit his brothers because their food required either coming from family, as David is doing, or they would go into a village and they would just take whatever they wanted. They had that right as soldiers as well. Old Testament and New Testament time frames. So David is just going to bring his brother's food, sees this going on, and says, who is this a barbarian who is defiling the name of my God? In other words, why isn't anybody going out there and putting an end to this? And we know the rest of the story. David goes out and he puts an end to it. With what resources David was given. He didn't have a sword. He didn't have a shield. All he had was what he would be carrying as a shepherd. Excuse me. And all that he needed was what God had already given him. I think that's an important point there. But Saul marvels at that. How did this just happen? What just happened? Who is this child? Look at chapter 18, verse 1. And it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with him, with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. How is it that we can have that kind of whoops, let me get back here. How can we be a true friend? How is it that we can accomplish the reality of Christ-like, Jonathan David-like, biblical-like true friendship? I think just using the very phrase that they have there, we have to have a knit friendship. And I have to say to begin with, as we were handing out kind of goofiness while in each of the points, I had to thought, oh, knit friendship. I'll hand out some knitting needles. And I thought, nah, that's fine. That's not going to work. But it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul. What do you think it was that David was saying as he made an end of speaking unto Saul? I'm going to guess that it included something that is recorded for us in verse 45 of the last chapter. 1 Samuel 17, verse 45. The very words that David said to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied and defiled. The very reality is that I'm guessing that Saul is amazed at what has just happened. He's asking, whose son are you? And how did you just do that? And what happened? And I'm certain from a distance they know that there's a conversation going on. I'm guessing they probably heard Goliath because he probably has a very loud voice as a very large man. But they are not aware of what David said. So tell us, what were you guys talking about before you slaughtered the man? I have to think, it's not recorded for us, but I have to believe that in the conversation, David refers back to what he said there in verse 45. You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee with nothing but this, the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. David put the focus on his God. It wasn't on his might, it wasn't on his strength, it wasn't on his skill. Standing before the king, certainly an honor of such. Certainly he's just come from the battlefield. He's literally got blood on his hands. He's standing there with the head of a giant literally in his hands yet. And Saul is discussing all that has just happened and why it happened and how it happened and who are you and what in the world is going on. David puts the focus on his God, not on himself. That's a hard thing to do. That's something aside from the aspect of friendship. That's a hard thing to do when you just accomplished something pretty spectacular in the strength of our God. Not to kind of break our arm trying to pat ourselves on the back and say, well, you know, I've been a shepherd so many times and I've had to do this and I've had to do that over the years and I've learned how to be very accurate with my end. Boy, you wouldn't believe how many hours I spent rehearsing on how to use a sling. No, what is his only advice here, his only comment? You come to me with all those things of weaponry. I come to you in the name of my God. End of discussion. David is rehearsing that before the king, and Jonathan seems to be nearby because verse 1 of 18 says, "And it came to pass when he made an end of speaking unto Saul." We don't know what that all was, other than the answer that we have in verse 58, "I'm the son of Jesse." But whatever it was that David had said to Saul in that time frame, I have to believe it is a reference back to all that took place there on the battlefield. It was hearing those words that verse 1 says, "The soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David." The soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David. It could literally be said there could be no two people more different in the world than those two people. One lived a life of luxury, of ease, of wealth, of position. One had to guarantee line and heritage to the throne. The other, more or less a peasant of sorts, whose position to that point was a shepherd boy, who had brothers, like Josiah, in the military, but to that point he was just a lad, he was just a youth, with no status, no position, no wealth, no fortune, no status to anything. These two people being knit together had nothing to do with commonality. This friendship that is being built isn't because they like the same things. It wasn't because they had the same background. It wasn't because their family is going through the same similar situation. None of that happened. These two guys could not have been any closer in ideals, in future goals, in life than polar opposites. But what they did have in common, what drew them together, was the very reality of a heart of David that said, I'm doing this not in my own mind, not in my own strength, not by my own skill. I'm doing this by the very name of the God who is the God of the armies of Israel. I'm doing this because that man defied that God. And putting the focus on his God is what became the glue between two polar opposite young men. Two guys who really would not have met each other any other way. And I know Samuel was involved and had already selected. I know all those details, but as far as just humanity goes, these two guys would never have been the same. They'd never been in the same company. They would have never had the same likeness. If you could put in, I know we don't have a king. Maybe sometimes he thinks he's a king. But me and any of Donald Trump, I don't even know how many kids he has. I know he's got a younger one, but it was a Donald Jr. I think he's older than I am. We don't hang out together. We have no connection. I don't foresee ever in my life ever being in the same building, probably even the same state as him. I can guarantee if we both wrote down our backgrounds, no similarity. I can guarantee you if we both wrote down our future goals, nothing in common. That's got to be pretty similar to how it would be with Jonathan and David. There's no commonality except this. A focus on the God who is the God of gods, the King of kings and Lord of lords. And it was that statement that knit their hearts together more than any common bond could ever do. More than, hey, you like this? I do too. Let's be friends. Baloney. That's not what friendship is built upon. Don't reduce friendship to that. Realize that true friendship is about the very reality of two hearts that are knit together because you're focused on the same God together. That is true friendship. 1 John 1, 6 and 7 says, if we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. Now I understand that in the Greek, the word there, one with another, the another is, what is that? What would that be? Second tense. It has the idea of more specifically of two people, perhaps than all people. In other words, it may actually be meaning more in reference to if I am walking in the light as God is in the light, my fellowship with my God will grow closer. So 1 John 1, 6 and 7 is probably a not the best, although it can be argued either way, passage to say, if I walk in the light as he is in the light, then I'm going to get along with others. Not necessarily what that verse is, but John 17 does make that connection. John 17, verses 20 through 23 says that they all may be one. This is Christ's prayer before his death. They all may be one as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe which thou hast sent me. And the glory which thou gavest me I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and thou in me, that thou may be perfect in one, and that the world may know that thou hast sent me, and hath loved me, loved them as thou hast loved me. Our unity, our bond is in a connection with Christ. No other way. That's true friendship. Our bond must be in a connection with Christ. Nothing else. I like blue, you like blue. Hey, we're your friends. I like the Cubs, you like the Cubs. That's amazing. Let's be friends. No, that's not saying that that's bad. Let's not reduce the definition of friendship to that extent. So I thought knitting needles, that doesn't really work. I thought salt and pepper, but only my mom would appreciate that, and she's not a student, so she wouldn't get them anyway. What else would go together that would be a constant symbol of the knit that Jonathan and David had in Christ? Now, honestly, I was lost. I had no idea. I went up to my wife and said, what can we do? And I think she's the one that had this thought, and I think it was a great idea, but it's still rather odd. If you can say that. It's still a little odd. I have socks! I have socks of it. Now my daughter, Kate, and I don't know if she's still on this, she wears socks that don't match. She'd wear a purple sock and an orange sock. And we'd say, Kate, do you not have the pair? Oh yeah, this is my new pair. No, purple, orange. You wear orange and orange, you wear purple and purple. You don't wear purple and orange. These are two pairs of socks that you've mixed up. Well, I understand that teenagers especially do weird things, regardless of whether it's socks or other things. These socks, however you wear them, even if you're only wearing one sock with another sock, be reminded that socks are supposed to be, and this is gonna shock you, socks are supposed to be worn in pairs. They made them that way. They match one with the other. I have one black sock on my left foot and a black sock on my right foot, and they both have the same lettering on the toe, and they are a pair. They go together. And almost as if they were, I don't know, say, knit together. And so I don't know who's handing these out, but we're going to hand these out, and I think there's an assortment of male and female. You may not like them, you may never wear them, and you may go, like my daughter, and wear them with socks that aren't designed to be with them as well. But keep in mind that a true friendship are knit together, like socks are supposed to be knit together. So we have them knit together as well. A knit friendship. Continuing on with the rest of verse 1. There is a love, and I know that seems awkward, and I know it seems awkward, especially in today's day and age, to mention the love that Jonathan and David had for each other. But look at the rest of verse 1. Now the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took on him that day and would let him go no more home to his father's house. Saul says, hey, this is the kind of guy I want right here. Verse 3. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. We have 3 verses, same phrase in 2 of those verses. Jonathan loved David as his own soul. It is a loved friendship. The glue that bound them together was not similar likes. It was not similar backgrounds. It was not similar class periods. It was not similar, whatever similarities we have. The bond, the glue that brought these two together was obviously, to begin with, a knit friendship that was founded in a focus on our God. But as well, it was a loved friendship that was rooted in as he loved his own soul. To the husband, the Bible speaks along the same lines in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 28. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. It seems easy enough, but I know marriages still fall apart on a weekly, daily basis, and loving someone as yourself is not normal. It's not easy. I can say it this way: without Christ, we can't love someone as we love ourselves. But I also know, going back to the rant on social media, I know that there are a lot of memes that I've seen of knuckleheads, if I can say it that way. What was it that Grandpa, was it knuckleheads or knotheads? One of the two. Knothead? Knotheads that Grandpa would often call myself and my brothers, probably more so Bob than anybody else. Just kidding. He called us, all four of us, knotheads. And sometimes I even wondered why we were being called knotheads. I think he just loved saying the word, and so we were the closest recipients of it. And it may have been that many times we actually acted like knotheads as well. But you know, there are knotheads, in memory of Grandpa, on social media who post things that just don't make any sense at all. And I have seen far more than one time a meme or a statement that says something along the lines of needing to, and you've probably all heard this, I need to love myself first so that I can learn how to love others. Really? Because you're struggling with loving yourself? Let me rephrase it how they ought to have said that. I need to learn how to forgive myself. I need to learn how to forgive or confess my sins so that I can rid myself of the guilt of my past, is ultimately what they should be saying. But learning to love myself has never been a struggle for any humanity. From the very first scream of a newborn baby, we know how to love ourselves. And that does not end until our last breath here on this earth. We know how to love ourselves. So for us to say, I've got to learn how to love myself. I just got to take some time to learn how to love myself first. That is baloney. That is not true. That is not right. That's not biblical. That is just complete nonsense. That's heresy, if I can say it that way, which most everything on social media is heresy anyway. That's ridiculous. Not a single one of us needs to learn how to love ourselves. We need to learn how to deal with our sin. We need to learn how to love our God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. We need to learn how to be in obedience to Him. But we don't have to learn how to love ourselves. That is the most innate reality of sinful human flesh that there could be. We have a problem with loving ourselves too much, not too little. For friends, if our aim is for the knit soul, for the child of God, is only found in a commitment to God first. And understand that that friendship ought to be a loved soul for the child of God. Talking about. All right, now that I have you awake, back to point two. As a friend, we just have to understand that our loving, as we love ourselves, loving our own soul, it only happens when we love others as we love ourselves. And I don't believe that we're ever instructed in the Word of God on how to love ourselves more. I don't think you could ever turn to a chapter and verse that says, here's how you love yourself more. But I can take you to chapter and verse that says, here's how to love yourself less. Here's how to die to yourself. Here's how to mortify the flesh. And so as we consider that reality of our easy, quick excuse of, well, I just can't love somebody to that extent because I don't even love myself. Let me ask you a few questions. What are some things that we do because we love ourselves? I know I'm running a little late, but I'll open it up. What are some things that we do, each one of us, I can guarantee every single one of us, what are some things that we do because we love ourselves?
Eat and drink.
We eat and drink. We get hungry, what do? We eat. We raid the refrigerator and the cabinets.
We sleep at night.
We sleep at night because we're tired. What else do we do because we love ourselves?
We kind of guard ourselves around other people too, protect ourselves.
Yes. We put up the walls. We got to have a wall of protection around us. I'm not talking about bad people, I'm talking about even just others. We don't want to become too vulnerable. Why is it that social media is so huge? Because we can be social with our walls in place. Because we love ourselves. What else do we do because we love ourselves? My wife has got some great answers. Rest of you.
I think keeps in mind more on the negative end of it, but still loving ourselves. He just pulled in front of me on the highway, or any other kind of dumb offense that's really not that big of a deal, but
Yes.
it becomes a big deal because he slowed me down by 12 seconds.
Correct. Yes.
Whatever I'm doing.
Because we love ourselves. Here's some things that I wrote. We protect ourselves, obviously. We, in a broad sense, modify ourselves with social media filters. We make ourselves look thinner, stronger, weirder. Because, why? We love ourselves. Have you ever lied? Now, don't answer this question, although I would dare say that we've all done this. Have you ever lied to defend yourself? Or, let me say it this way, have you ever been tempted to lie to defend yourself? We prepare ourselves, my wife kind of said that, we bathe, I hope we bathe, we dress, we make those decisions. Why? Because we love ourselves. If you don't bathe, I guess there could be discussion, maybe you don't love yourself. You don't love others, yeah, you certainly aren't loving others very much if you're not bathing, that's a whole other discussion. That's a discussion we had in junior high, boys. How about our decisions? Do our decisions evidence our love for ourselves? Have you ever had a pro and con list? What's the focus of the pro and con list?
What's best for me?
Mwah! Ever made a pro and con list and from the perspective of God? That's an interesting pro and con list. Have you ever said, I don't have time for this, or for them? Why do we ever say that? Because we love ourselves. Have you ever said, this is not my problem? Have you ever said, I don't deserve this? Or thought that? Have you ever looked down on someone else? No, you can only look down on someone else if you've elevated yourself because you love yourself. You see, self-love is not something we struggle with. It's something that is natural to us. It's something that we always do. Loving others to that same extent is something we struggle with. So we can never say, I have a problem, I have a struggle with making friends because I don't know how to love myself. Baloney. We have a problem many times with how to deal with our own sin, and we have regret, we have remorse, we have depression, we have discouragement, but we don't have a problem with loving ourselves. And we have got to train ourselves to love others to that same way. I can take that same list that I just went over, some of them, obviously the negative ones we don't want to be doing to others, but the positive ones. As I protect myself, can I love others to the same extent? I have been asked a couple of times, why does a pastor feel the need to go to a concealed carry class to carry a gun and be trained to have to shoot somebody if that's necessary? And I've given this response, and I think I've even shared this with my family. I don't ever intend on shooting somebody to save my own life. I don't know that I could do that. If I was ever on a call with the police department and it came down to me or them, I'd have to say I'd probably take me. Only because I know where I'm going, and I have a pretty clear confidence I know where they would go too if I shot them first. But I will defend somebody else's life to the greatest extent that I can do. Now, I'm not saying that I'm looking for somebody to knock me down somewhere, dig a shallow grave and dump me in it. I'm certainly not saying that. But my objective is that we ought to have such a desire that we will defend others. Will you protect others? Do we have a friendship that does that we will protect as we protect ourselves? Will we have that desire that our decisions are not just based upon me, but upon others? More specifically, it should be based on our God. Are their problems, are their sorrows, are their heartaches, are their joys also your joy? Well, again, what kind of gift can we give out to show us a love, friendship? We have, again, another odd present, and my wife will hand these out as well. I have a football, little football, and they're very soft because I know some of you are going to go home, probably my daughters as well. You are going to go home and try to master this without flinching. But here's the truth. If this were a real football, a full-size football that's inflated to its full proper extent, and someone, what's that guy from the Bears that used to be winning, who was that? I think it was the Super Bowl shuffle. Who was the guy? Jim McMahon. If Jim McMahon, probably the last Bears quarterback that I know the name of, and even that I struggled with. If Jim McMahon, back from the 80s, were to have a football in his hand and you were literally 5 yards away from him and he was going to give you the full throw right into your gut, or we can even say into your face, what would you do? Go ahead, do it, I'm ready. No, you're going to get your hands up. You're going to be blocking yourself. You're going to be running. I'm going to take that 5 yards distance. I'm going to take it as far as I can before that old football guy gets his arm back to hurl at me. I'm going to do something to keep that ball from smacking me dead center in my face or my gut. I'm not going to just say, all right, go ahead and do it. Now, we're handing out soft football. Look at it. I can do that for this. Yeah, I know you can go home and probably the Miller boys will be doing this. You can throw it at each other and do it. Go ahead, I'm ready. Right here, go ahead. It's not going to hurt you. But a football is a great representation of to show you how much you do love yourself. Because if I were to throw this really hard in your direction, you will flinch. You will respond. You will do something to stop it because you love yourself. Learn how to love others to that same extent. So here's some footballs, soft ones. Beat yourself up with them because they won't hurt. But remind yourself, if it were a real football, it would hurt. It truly, really would hurt. Lastly, I need to hurry up here. There's also a sacrificial friendship. Look at verse 4 very quickly. And Jonathan stripped himself of his robe that was upon him and gave to David and his garments, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his girdle. What is Jonathan doing to David right there in verse 4? He has a knit friendship. It's a friendship based on love. It's a loved friendship. I'm calling this a sacrificial friendship. But ultimately, what is David doing in verse 4? Let me ask you this. Who was Jonathan again? He was the son of the king. What was Jonathan destined to be then? Yes. Jonathan was a man who was destined to be the next king, and he had the clothing of a prince. He had the weaponry of a prince. He had the training to be the next king. When we come to verse 4, this is what Jonathan is literally doing. I have this robe that is for a king, because I'm about to be one. It's yours, David. I have this sword. I'm a prince, and I'm being destined. I'm being molded. I'm being trained to be the next king. And here is a sword that established me as such. Here it is, David. It's yours. I have these garments. I have this bow. I have this girdle again. Now, this same chapter, we're talking about two guys loving each other and a guy wearing a girdle and giving it to another. There's so many weird things in this chapter. But the very reality is a sacrificial friendship. Jonathan literally is saying, here's my status. This, we can look at status in the eyes of man, not in the eyes of God, but here's my status in the eyes of man. I am the son of a king. David, here's your status. You are a shepherd boy. Let me remove everything of mine that puts me here, and let me give it to you. And we know that David would be, in fact, the next king. But what Jonathan did in verse 4 made it very clear in his own heart by his own actions. I know I'm here, and I know you are here. I'm not going to relish in the fact that you're not me. I'm going to sacrifice so that you are me. That is a picture of a true friend. That's a picture of a godly friend. That is not a, well, you'll never be King David. Your father, Who's he? My father is the king, as you know. He takes off everything that distinguishes him as the son of a king, and he gives it to this other similarly aged guy that he has just heard, he has just met. In fact, Jonathan seemingly doesn't even, as Saul himself, has no idea who David is. They've just met each other. And yet, Jonathan says, here's my sword. Here's my cloak. Here's my garments. Here's all that has the picture of my status I'm giving to you. Ultimately, what Jonathan is doing, he's turning over his future. He is risking and even denying his own future for the future of another. Has our friendship ever gone to that level? I have this goal, I have this objective, I have this agenda, I have this desire, I have this dream, and I've been working and you know what? I want to give that to you. That happens so rarely in friendship that we have to go all the way back to 1 Samuel 18 to see it in action. But if we want to be a true friend, that's exactly what true friendship looks like. And again, you can't do that on social media. You can't live that out from a distance. You can't do that without sacrificing. Now, on the return, I'm not saying you should always find friends that are willing to give you everything. That's not what this is about. Don't take this from David's perspective. Always find a friend like Jonathan who will give you everything they own. That's not what a friend is. We have got to be a friend. This kind of friend that says, here's who I am. Here's what I have. Here's my status. And I am willing to give that all to you. Have that kind of friendship. This is not a manufactured imitation of friendship. This is not a pseudo-friendship manufactured by social media. Literally, none of these points can be accomplished that way. True friendship is only possible one-on-one, person-to-person, face-to-face, and it all began with a focus on our God. Now this one's not goofy, I don't think. This one's difficult. This one I think is going to be, this is ornery of me. And I have to admit, I feel sort of guilty, but I don't. We have gift cards up here, and I'm assuming that for the gals, the ladies in the room, you're going to want the McDonald's one, and then the younger ones are going to want the Starbucks. I got that backwards. I think the gals are going to want the Starbucks, and I'm not a fan of Starbucks. In fact, I'm not a fan of coffee. But Starbucks seem to have gift cards in cute gift cards. Now I'm starting to wear the girls. I was like, they have cute gift cards. And I know that they're around in Galesburg where they go to school. And McDonald's are everywhere, and I just suspect that the three boys are all about McDonald's. So, Starbucks, McDonald's. And here's why I'm giving this to you. And there's a caveat, so you have to listen to this whole statement. We are giving these to you to give to someone else. Oh, I can get so much from McDonald's that I love. Nope. True. It probably is. Not for me. I will say that. Nope. Not for me. Probably for you, yes. There's probably things that you can get from McDonald's that you love. And you four girls, probably there's some at Starbucks. Hopefully not their politics that you can get that you love as well. But in order to help us all learn how to be truly sacrificial in our friendship, I think it is great for a church to give you a gift that you don't get to keep. Isn't that honoring of me? But here's a caveat, because I know that my kids are already in the works, and I can almost guarantee you the Miller kids are in the works as well, because you are all smart kids. This is a caveat. You cannot give it to each other. Caitlin gets hers. Becca, I have a present for you. And Becca says, well, I have one I have to give away too. Well, here you go, Caitlin. He did it. Nope. Can't do that way. Also, caveat number 2. Because I know you guys are smart, and even regardless of how many caveats I have, you're going to have more that you're going to think of. Caveat number 2. You cannot sell these. Whether for goods of service or dollars, you cannot sell these. Hey, if you do my homework, I will give you a gift card. A pretty gift card. No, you're not selling these. You're not trading them with your siblings. You're not trading them Miller's to Newtorn. You're not giving them or selling them to your dad so that he can take you there. Those are all things that do not qualify as what the purpose of this is all about. You go to school, you go in your community, you go somewhere, and you find someone that you say, you know what, maybe they need an encouragement. There's somebody in my class, which doesn't apply to my kids because they have nobody else in their class. There's somebody in my class they're having a hard time. And I wanted to be able to be an encouragement to them to say, hey, tell them this from you. You don't have to tell them, my church gave me this thing, I'll have to give it away to somebody. So, no, don't do that. Use this as if it's coming from you and say, take this, and I want to be an encouragement to you. And do it in such a way that you can be honoring to your God in that regard. Maybe give them, especially for the ladies, give them a card with it and say, hey, I'm praying for you. I just wanted to encourage you. Or maybe you want to say, hey, thanks for being a friend. Do not say, so I'm going to give this to you so that you have to do this for me. No, that's not how this works. And so we have the gift cards and we'll hand those out as well. Those are not for you. They're not to switch with somebody else. They're not to sell. They're not to sell for goods or services or money, any kind of compensation of whatsoever. Use them to encourage somebody else. And that's probably the hardest gift. You're probably no. Then it's only $5, so it's not that big of a gift card. You'll get at Starbucks. You probably still owe money to get a coffee. At McDonald's, you probably get a whole meal. But we want to be able to encourage you in that way as well. Well, we're going to close with a word of prayer. A knit friendship, a love friendship, a sacrificial friendship. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you again for who you are. I pray that you'd show us how to be better in our friendship, how to live that out, again, from the youngest person to the oldest person. And I pray that we'd be aware of how often our society, perhaps even our own hearts, are so willing to easily redefine what it means to be a friend. And I pray that we'd be challenged by the very presentation here in 1 Samuel 18 of Saul's son, Jonathan and David, of these two that met for the very first moment in this chapter. And yet still in the same chapter, those two hearts are knit for a lifetime because of you. And I pray that we be that kind of a friend, that we learn how to be that kind of friend, that we wouldn't come and continue on with the excuses, the justifications, the I don't want to and I don't feel like it, that we truly learn how to be a true friend. And I pray that you would direct our steps, allow us to die to ourselves so that we can live unto you, even in the lives of those around us, and that you would use us and strengthen us as we do. And I just pray for each of the kids here as all of them have already started their school year, but I pray that you just challenge them this year academically, but that as well that you challenge them spiritually, enable them to grow in you, in your likeness, to be challenged and changed, become more like you here this year, in this school year. And I just pray that you use each one of them to your honor and to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.